What's up, Superfans? My name is Zay, and we finally got to see Fantastic Four.
Actually, we got to see it like a week ago.
Yeah, okay, I was a little slow to the draw on this one, okay? And that's kind of ironic for me to say that. The reason I'm late with this video is because I really put a lot of work into drawing the Fantastic Four as Avatar characters. And guys, I think this is the best one I've done of these so far. I spent a lot of time working on it, so stay to the end of the video so you can see that picture, okay? I think it's really good. But we don't need any more of a preamble. Let's get into this episode of what we're now calling the Crossover Chronicles. Let's cross over Avatar: The Last Airbender and the Fantastic Four.
This episode of the Crossover Chronicles is brought to you by the Superfan Society. If you're looking to join your own fantastic family, subscribe to Zay the Superfan and join the Superfan Society. It's super, fantastic even. Subscribe today!
All right, so first let's start with the basics, right? The Fantastic Four is a group of 4 superheroes that get powers from venturing into the cosmos, and they come back and they can stretch, they can be engulfed in flames, they can go invisible and make force fields, and then they're hard. Rock hard. They're covered in stone, you know? So we've got brave adventuring, we've got superpowers, and also we've got that they are scientists. All right, so let's start off with these characters in general, right? We've got the 4 Fantastic Four members. Who are they? Reed Richards. But in this crossover, his name instead of Reed will be Ritka. Now, if you're like a Avatar fan, you could start seeing where these are going based on their names, but we'll get to that later. Next up, we have Sue Storm. Now, what's awesome is that Sue exists as a name. We have Su Yin Beifong, so Sue Storm is going to be Su Yin. Then, of course, we've got Johnny. Now, one of my friends in real life is named Johnny, and because I often think about Avatar crossing over with my life, I already know a good name for Johnny with these. Johnny. I love it. I think it sounds good, but doesn't it kind of feel like when you just throw apostrophes in words to make them sound medieval? We're going to the magical land of New York. I hear they have a new place called Hooters, but if I'm honest, it's problematic. Anyway, down that same line of avatarifying these names, I couldn't find anything good for Ben. So I asked ChatGPT and it suggested Ben with an H. I'll let you decide where that's at. All right, and then moving on to the next concept, we have them being these brave adventurers going into the cosmos. But what would that look like in Avatar? Zay Sauce, Michael here. Now, Avatar obviously doesn't have space travel. They do have flight.
They got planes and dirigibles.
But I feel like what we're looking for isn't space. It's this like idea of a new frontier. Well, towards the end of Korra, we actually got a new frontier that people can access. The spirit world. No longer is the spirit girl, the spirit girl, that's Rava. No longer is the spirit world sectioned off only for the meditative monks living on mountains. Now you could go to the spirit world just by visiting Republic City. However, we don't see people doing this yet. So our Fantastic Four are going to be the first 4 normal people that step foot through the spirit portal and into the spirit world. Now, the only thing that leaves us with is their powers. The Avatar world has powers built into it in bending. And while it would be easy to say that they got their bending from this trip, I feel like that 1 breaks the canon too much and 2 doesn't quite give what we want this to give. One of the things that I love about the Fantastic Four story is that they don't see their powers as great all the time. It's kind of a curse. I like their powers kind of tying into them as people and like their biggest problems and insecurities. So I want to follow that line. The first thing that came to mind from Avatar was spiritual possession. Now you may think, oh, that sounds scary. It is. Basically, when we watched Juan's story, the beginnings arc of Legend of Korra, we found out that spirits are actually able to possess human bodies, but when they leave them, they leave a trace of their spiritual form behind. We first saw this with this old man who had like tree parts, and then we went on to see it with the Ai spirit, which left this dude with like animalistic features, like a huge ear, and like I think his nose looked, I'm realizing now he was a furry. But I think this is the vibe that I'm going for, something that is physically traumatic and leaves you with permanent changes. So instead of going out into space and being changed by the cosmic rays, here's my story. The Fantastic Four are 4 of the leading scientists in Republic City. They were tasked with a great mission to brave the new frontier of the spirit world and step where ordinary citizens were never allowed before. But as they walked in, they soon realized what many spiritual practitioners had realized before them. The spirit world is dangerous and it changes for everyone. By the way, I forgot to go over that. The spirit world changes based on you and like your emotional state. Look at Korra here. Upon entering the spirit world, the Fantastic Four each were separated from each other, forced into a space that turned into their own personal hells, each of them having to face a spirit that reflects the deepest, darkest parts of themselves. And when they come back, they're irrevocably changed. So now that leads us to the part that I know you're really here for, okay? The character analysis. What do they bend? To take a look at these characters, though, we're gonna have to break it into 3 sections each. I call this the 3 C's. We have their character, their credo, and their combat. Character is going to be their personality, credo is going to be their personal philosophy, and their combat is obviously their combat style. All right, let's get the easy ones out of the way, okay? Johnny, he's a firebender, right? And the Thing, he's an earthbender. But let's give them the time they deserve. So let's start with Johnny. All right, so for Johnny's character, Johnny is loud, he's flashy, he likes the spotlight, but he has a heart of gold. He's like quick to react and loyal when it counts. Personally, I feel like he represents the duality of firebending very well, where there is the power and explosion kind of thing going on, but then there's also the life and love that we see with the Sun Warriors. As far as his credo, I think it would be like act fast, think later. And then for his combat, it's act first, think later. So here's how I think this would work in universe. Johnny, when changed in the spirit world, came out with an inability to control the level of his firebending. We've actually seen in the novel, The Reckoning of Roku, don't worry, no spoilers, that when Roku is confronted by these specific spirits, his firebending is increased tenfold. Here's a little clip of it, right? Everything in Roku wanted to go on the offensive, wanted to release the energy building within to neutralize the threat. He could end this in the blink of an eye, but the gave him pause. Letting too much power flow through him might be as impossible to control as a wild dragon. Now tell me that isn't sick. Anyway, I think that this is the affliction that Johnny leaves the spirit world with. Imagine if you had to water your plants, wash your dishes, wash your hands, all with a fire hose. No level of control for how much water comes out, the power or anything like that, just always at 11. That's what I think happened to Johnny. So whenever he tries to firebend, his body is fully engulfed. Now we do know that firebenders are trained early on, again from the novels, to dissipate the heat that goes around them so that fire doesn't actually burn them. It's like an active bending skill, which is why Zuko has a scar. He didn't fight his father. He didn't bend the heat away. He didn't think his dad was gonna hit him. Even worse. So that's how I think it would look in universe. And Johnny, that means that you are a firebender. And then that brings us to Ben Grimm, the Thing. As for Ben's character, Ben is loyal. He has your back no matter what. He is very gruff and no nonsense, but he cares deep down. And he puts up this stone wall exterior, trying not to let things get to him, but they do. Which leads us to his credo, which I think is hard on the outside, soft on the inside. And then his combat, I mean, bro, it's clobbering time. I feel like the best visual of why I think this is earthbending, though, aside from the rocks all over him, is this scene from the 2005 movie. Ben does not know that he can survive this, but when he sees a truck coming at him, instead of grabbing the guy and running, he just plants his feet and dips his shoulder into it. Crazy. Literally how Toph trained Aang. So here's how I think this went in the spirit world. When Ben came out of the spirit world, he was left with the physical effects of confronting a spirit. He was possessed by a spirit of the earth, much like the Ai spirit possessed that one furry guy. He walked away forever physically changed to where now parts of his skin are they themselves earthen. So Ben, that leaves you as an earthbender. All right, the next one, Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. So let's start with character. First off, Reed Richards is all brain. He is the smartest man in the room in whatever universe that room is in. He tends to get caught up in his work and forgets to like check in emotionally. And he means well, but he often overcomplicates things while trying to fix it. Reed is all brains, which leads into what I believe his credo is, which is you can think your way out of any situation. You could say his mind is pretty flexible. And then his combat style, well, his combat style is just as inventive as he is. We see Mr. Fantastic stretching his body parts to be bigger, making giant hammers, and even making binoculars out of his eyes. Somebody explain in the comments how that could work, because I'd like to think that there is a way. Now, when you take all that together, you get somebody who has to be flexible, has to be able to adapt in a moment's notice, and is ready for things to change. Now, if you've listened to Iroh's speech on the elements, you know where I'm going with this. Reed is a waterbender. Not only does this give an excuse for him to be able to have these stretchy powers, but also it goes along with his character. The basics of waterbending is pushing and pulling, right? When something gets thrown at you, you don't stand there and take it. You don't jump out of the way. You take its own momentum and you push it back and throw it at the other person, which is exactly what Reed does when problems get in his way. So the way that I think this would translate into our story would be that Reed, when they went to the spirit world, when fighting his spirit, lost his appendages, much like Ming-Hua from The Legend of Korra, and will eventually learn to bend water as his limbs, giving him the chance to be able to do all these stretchy, cool maneuvers. Okay, so while I was editing this, I realized that I forgot to mention part of my reasoning for this. It may seem a little extreme to remove all of his appendages, because that would mean that when he's not bending, he doesn't have any of them. But I actually kind of feel like this goes along with some incarnations that we see of Reed. There's some versions of the comics that have it to where when Reed is not using his powers to actively hold his body together, he just turns into a puddle. So in that same way, I think that the Avatar version of Reed would have to consciously bend his appendages in order to use them. Okay, I'll let the other Zay take back over. So Reed, you are a waterbender. Next up, Sue Storm. All right, so Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman. Now, I think the new movie has my favorite incarnation of Sue Storm. I love how this movie and some of the comics too make her like a diplomat. I think that's awesome. But for her character, what we consistently see is that Sue is like the glue that holds the family together. She's loving but stern. She's the voice of reason. She's the team's guiding wind. As for her credo, I think they said it best in the new movie when she said, "We're gonna face this as a family."
It's about family.
And now for her combat, now this is really what sold me for this one, right? Sue has the ability to go invisible. Duh. But also she can make force fields and, you know, use them forcefully in a field. Now, the force fields, very reminiscent of airbending, right? But what about the invisibility? Well, in The Legend of Korra, we do see that airbenders can eventually attain a subbending known as astral projection, where a character can come from invisibility into a translucent form and back again. And I think that's the closest we're going to get to invisibility without starting to go down like fan fiction routes of light bending and stuff like that, right? Now, here's how I think this would work in universe. I think that during her battle, Sue had her spirit detached from her body in a way that it doesn't stay permanently connected anymore. And she's realized her ability to astral project, but when she does, her body's gone. It transports into the spirit world, leaving her with this sort of invisible form that she can toggle between. Now, that is a little fan fiction-y for me, so that's like my outlandish one. If I were to reel it in a little bit, be a little more realistic with it, I would say that she goes and sits down somewhere outside of the battle and then astral projects and then comes back to her body when she needs to airbend, right? Because you can't bend when you're spirit. You have to have a physical body. So I would say that it's probably somewhere between those two things. We'll say that the Fantastic Four as like legendary characters, you know, have stories that go along with it. We don't know which one's real. They're just so powerful. But we'll say the truth lies somewhere between those two. So Sue, that means that you are an avatar. So Sue, that means that you are an airbender. Oh. With all that said, now's the time, drum roll please, to show you my picture. Here they are, the Fantastic Four in Avatar. Okay, so we've got Reed using his stretchy powers with water, Johnny completely engulfed in flames, Sue using her airbending to create a force field, and the Thing lifting some rocks knowing that it's clobbering time. I am so happy with this, dude. I really hope you guys had fun with this. Let me know down in the comments if you would have changed any of what we had or if you have any cool ideas to add to this crossover. I want to thank you guys for joining me on this episode of the Crossover Chronicles. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like below and subscribe while you're down there if you haven't already, and join the Superfan Society. Do it. I'm not gonna tell you again. I'll probably tell you again, but just do it. Just subscribe. We go over all types of fandoms: Avatar, Marvel, DC, Disney even. I want to do some Lord of the Rings stuff. I read The Hobbit for the first time, so we're gonna be doing some like fantasy stuff too. It's a super great time with other super fans, so it would be super cool of you to join. That being said, that's where I'm gonna leave it today. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to follow me on my socials. I've been really active on Threads. I've been just sharing a bunch of thoughts there when I go see movies or when I'm reading a book. So check out that and my other socials listed down below. But I will see you all soon with another video. And until then, stay super. I need alliteration. Feel fantastic.